we assign so much meaning to all the things that happen in life, and it's like knowing that it kind of just is, and being okay in the just is, and not
Yeah.
assigning so much meaning, especially to those things that aren't serving us. It's like we can assign meaning. If we're gonna assign meaning to anything, we might as well only assign it to the things that are serving us.
Hello and welcome to the Business of Happiness podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Tarryn MacCarthy, and today is going to be a great day because I am interviewing a spectacular man who I'm so excited to introduce you to. He reached out to me to be on the podcast, and his story has just absolutely inspired me. His name is John Mendez, and he is a self-proclaimed serial entrepreneur, and you'll find out why. Realtor, investor, and podcast host of a phenomenal podcast that I am eagerly inviting you to check out. It's called Walk to Wealth Podcast. He's also a social media guru, and you'll know when you check out his Instagram, which is linked in the show notes. So definitely check him out. And he is deeply passionate about helping other like-minded individuals achieve a life of abundance, and doing so in a non-traditional way. Through the power of the mind and social media, he's showing others how to obtain financial freedom and live the life of their dreams, but once again, in a way that's true to you and not necessarily the way that everyone else has been doing it. Am I right, John?
Yes, I agreed 100%. That was an amazing intro, and you hit it right on the money.
Awesome. Awesome. So tell us a little bit about your background and what makes you so non-traditional in this entrepreneurial world.
Yeah, so I mean, the first part is I wasn't a born entrepreneur. So like right off the back, like this isn't something that I was like, I wasn't the guy with the paper route or the lemonade stand or the candy bars at schools. Like I wasn't a born entrepreneur at all. So that's kind of the first part. But a little bit about my upbringing. I won't go too deep into the weeds, but I grew up nine people in a two-bedroom in the projects. My grandparents raised me. They came from Dominican Republic. My Dominican side of the family raised me. So I'm also fluent in Spanish. And so like for me growing up, we had very humble beginnings. For me, I didn't realize that until later on in my life. I'm still pretty young, but later on in my life, like more so like high school, because when you're struggling at that age as a child, that's just kind of life. So I
Yeah.
never seen it as I was lacking stuff. I was always a happy, positive kid. I was always they used to call me Smiley back in my football nickname was Smiley. I was always the most positive, happy kid ever, despite not having the most. I was always very appreciative, very grateful for everything. And then so for me, the entrepreneurial bug kind of kicked in to fast forward a little bit. During my college years, I was in my sophomore year of college. I was in the University of Connecticut over in the School of Business. And it was that fall semester 2021. And I don't know what led me to go into Barnes and Noble, but I picked up 3 books, and it was Rich Dad Poor Dad, Index Funds for Dummies, and this book called I Will Teach You to Be Rich. And the first of the 3 books that I read was Rich Dad Poor Dad. And everyone talks about how great it is. It is a really good book. It's not the best book in the world, but it shifts your mindset enough to, plant a seed in you to know that there's another way of viewing the world out there.
Yeah.
And for me, my grandparents and the ideas that they kind of, whether they wanted to or not, but instilled in me, resonated much like with the poor dad in the book. And I was starting to realize that, and I started reflecting on my own life and some of the thoughts that I heard growing up. I was like, why do they think that way? Why don't they think like the rich dad? And YouTube University comes in handy. So that winter break, I went, you know, all into YouTube University, looking up personal finance stuff, how to build my credit, how to invest in index funds, and that kind of sparked the fire. And then when I came back my spring semester, I believe it was 2021. So fall 2020 was that semester. The spring 2021 is when I decided to, sign up for my real estate classes, and then I never looked back, and I decided to stop showing up to my college classes, and that's how I entered the world of entrepreneurship. And I don't have any plans of going back to the traditional way of living.
Wow. And you know what's really interesting is you did this all during the pandemic.
Yes.
Really? This was right when that was happening. How did that impact your choices?
I think it gave me a lot of free time to realize, like, hey, this is not what I want to do. And the reason that I knew this is what college was what I wanted to do is because before the pandemic, I only went to school for 2 reasons, right? I got into 13 or so, and the only reason I decided to go to college was to network and learn how to live on my own.
Mm.
Because with networking, I already knew the power of networking. I know the stats, like only 20% of jobs on the job market, are available through like Indeed and ads and stuff like that. For the most part, the majority of the jobs are through a connection, right? So I know the importance of networking prior to me even going to college. And then the journey, living on your own, that college experience is something that's so invaluable because you kind of get the exposure to adulthood while without having any of the consequences that adulthood brings. Like, for
Mm,
example, you can make a lot of riskier decisions
mm,
because you still are under the shield or under the protection of the school.
mm.
Whereas if you don't pay your rent, in the real world, depending on what state you're in, an eviction letter can come extremely quickly,
Yeah.
right? But it's like in college, you might have to talk to an academic advisor. They'll try to figure something out, give you some scholarships. So it's like you get that first step into adult world without getting all the consequences and
Yeah.
the negative things that may be coming your way if you don't navigate the world correctly during college. So for me, once the pandemic came, it was like I was in my bedroom taking Zoom classes with the camera off. I'm laying in bed. Sometimes I would just wake up and log on and then go back to bed. So it's like I was not learning how to live on my own. And then I couldn't network because I wasn't the only kid doing that. Every other kid in college had their camera off in bed because
Yeah.
no one wants to go to 8 a.m. class to begin with. And now at 8 a.m. class on Zoom while you're at home, it's
Yeah.
like, so there was no networking going on. So the two reasons I went into college going in instantly were wiped out. So that kind of made the decision for me very easy. And once I kind of went into the rabbit hole of like entrepreneurship and, I got my taste for real estate, I was like, I've always been the type of person to bet on myself, and I'm very confident in my own skills and that I will figure out a way. So I was just like, why not, give it a chance? Just while the whole world is panicking and is fearful, be greedy. Warren Buffett quote. I kind of butchered it a little bit, but right, everyone was panicking. I was like, okay, I got something. I got my eyes set on a target. Let me just roll with it and see where it goes.
Wow. What gave you that confidence? Because that takes a lot of confidence to suddenly take a left turn from what everybody else is telling you to do, from what you initially started to do, and then choose a new path. So, what gave you that confidence?
So I answered the question in two parts. The first part, I think, where it originates from is really my grandfather. He's a traditional Dominican man. He walks, he has a big beer belly, but he walks with his chest up, chin up, great, big smile. Like when he walks into a room, he commands, attention,
Mm.
and his presence is felt. And that was just like I would always wonder growing, like walking around, because we also didn't have a car growing up. So we'd walk downtown and wherever we needed to get to. And he would always say hi to people. Mind you, he also doesn't speak English. So he would say hi to people, not knowing these people. And I would always ask, like, Grandpa, like, do you know them? He was like, no, but it was just something that you do. And it's a lot more common down south in the southern states, but up here in the Northeast, most people, when you're crossing them by and on a sidewalk or walking, they're going to be in their phone or they're going to look away and not going to say anything to you. But he always, greeted people. And so like that's where the confidence I feel like kind of originated from, if I could pinpoint it to as early back as I can go. And then the second part of the question is the root word of confidence, right? It's two parts, right? The first part is con, right? And the second part is fianza. So con means with, fianza is trust, right? So with trust. If you're someone that has a lot of confidence, it's because you're with trust. You have a lot of trust in yourself. And
Mm.
I was always very trustworthy of myself, partially because, I'd rather have things be in my hand because I have more control. And part of it is too because, I feel like if it's in my control, then the outcome, I have a better chance of, achieving success. So it's like, of course I had confidence because I trusted myself. And that's where the confidence really came from.
What would you say to somebody who doesn't trust themselves?
Start with small, like small little action, small task, right? Whether it's I'm going to get up at 7 a.m. on the dot, right? Something that's super small, but it's like those little wins. It's like if you could start trusting yourself with small things. I have this weird philosophy. I don't really know where I got it from, but it's that words are everything and they're nothing at the same time because
Mm.
we assign meaning to words.
Mhm.
And so if you say you're going to do something, right, and you don't do it, even if you didn't assign too much meaning to that, it might have been something that's not that important. You said that you were going to do it, and by you not doing it, now your brain, your body knows that, okay, I can't trust that you're going to accomplish this task, no matter how small the task may be,
Yeah.
right? And so it doesn't take too many of those before, our internal identity realizes that, hey, we're not someone that could do small tasks, we definitely can't do anything that's major task, right? So it's like it only takes for you not showing up on time a couple times, or you being late, or you saying that you're going to start the diet and not starting. It only take a couple of these different, I guess, triggers you could call them, before your body and your identity starts to realize that, hey, you're not someone that could be trusted with anything, and then your self-confidence just a downward spiral from there.
It's such a great point, John, and one that I think that we don't pay attention to, because you so many of us find ourselves in this place of not knowing how to listen to our intuition, not knowing how to trust ourselves, and it can be a scary place. And I love that you've just given that permission, because perhaps you've built up that mistrust over time, and then how to crawl out of it by just making small promises that you do uphold to
Yeah.
yourself and rebuild that trust, just as you would with any relationship.
Yeah, you mentioned a powerful word there too. It kind of slipped it in there, permission.
Yeah.
And it's something that, especially growing up, we're taught to ask for permission for virtually everything.
Mhm.
And the problem with permission and asking for permission is that whoever you ask for permission now has the power over your life.
Yes.
And that's something that it's so small growing up. It's like, hey, can I use the bathroom? But that's like that programming. It continues into our adulthood. And now that's why a lot of people, they're subconscious. They're anxious in social environments and stuff like that, because all this asking for permission, when you grow up now, it's like, well, you're in these environments and all you ever done was give up your power to other people. Now you don't have the power to dictate and control your own life in front of you.
Absolutely. And then regaining that power to give yourself the permission you need, and recognizing you don't need anybody else's permission.
Yeah, and being okay with it too.
Yeah.
And the there's a poem about the road less traveled by, and
Mm.
I only remember the last line, but he finishes off the poem by saying that he took the road less traveled by and it's made all the difference.
Yeah.
And knowing that when you're custom made, you don't worry about fitting in, right?
Yeah.
Because you're one of one, right? And so that kind of helps you start to get that power back over your life, because and Alex Hormozy too. He's another big entrepreneur guy. He talks his viewpoint's a little extreme, but he was like, if you die today, in 2 weeks, majority of people that you ever come across probably won't know you, and in 6 months, only your close family will probably remember, anything that you ever encountered them with. So it's like we let these people who really have no actual impact or care for our life have so much control and power over our lives, and
Yeah.
it's kind of counterintuitive a little bit.
Yeah. And it's such a great similarity to what you were talking about with words. Words have no meaning, and they have so much meaning all at once. It's the same with really anything in your life. Nothing means nothing until you add meaning to it.
Yeah, there's a guy I interviewed too. His name is Kevin Russell. He probably might be a great guest to interview. But he talked about the story of the farmer. And the farmer, he had a son in a little farm. And in the farm, he had two wild horses. The horses ran away. And everyone from the village comes to see the farmer. And they all say, hey, your horses ran away. That must suck. That's terrible. And he's like, maybe. The next day comes on, or I think a week passes or something like that. And the two horses come back with seven more wild horses.
Mm,
Now he has a giant flock of horses.
mm,
All the villagers come back. Hey, that's amazing. You have all these horses now. What an amazing thing. And the farmer replies again,
maybe.
maybe.
Mm,
Fast forward a little bit more, right? The son is caring for one of the horses, and he lets loose a little bit, breaks his leg. All the villagers
mm,
come back, right? And they same thing. Oh, that must suck. That's such a terrible thing. Your son is injured now.
yeah.
Maybe. And then the last part is the people from the government came back to recruit all the sons because they were going to war,
Mm,
and the farmer's son didn't get recruited.
mhm.
And the same thing, the villagers came back and said, oh, you're so lucky your son didn't get drafted. He said maybe. And it's like we assign so much meaning to all the things that happen in life, and it's like knowing that it kind of just is, and being okay in the just is, and
Yeah.
not assigning so much meaning, especially to those things that aren't serving us. It's like we can assign meaning. If we're gonna assign meaning to anything, we might as well only assign it to the things that are serving us.
Hey guys, I'm interrupting your podcast episode to let you know about an incredible new program that I am launching in January of 2023. It is specifically for practitioners in medicine and dentistry to help you rediscover happiness and inner fulfillment within your profession and your life. I remember what it was like for me when years ago I was so depressed and anxious and feeling like I had created and built a treadmill I just couldn't get off of, pushing through every day and wishing my life away. This program is the how of how to find happiness in your practice and in your life. Because we know that when we feel good, that's when we can do good. Check out thebizofhappiness.com/radical happiness or click the link in the show notes. I cannot wait to see you there. Love that. Such powerful words. You know, you're speaking here to an audience of many people who have followed a very traditional path, who
Yeah.
have done the thing they're supposed to have done. They went to school, they passed the tests, they graduated from college, they then went to the next school, got a postgraduate degree, and then ended up in a profession that sometimes some of us have looked back and thought, oh my gosh, is this what I really would have chosen had I made those decisions for myself? And was I maybe just going with the flow and doing what everyone expected of me? So I'd love to know from your perspective at 21 years of age, I'd
Yeah.
love to know, like, for the 41-year-old, the 51-year-old, the 61-year-old, what would you say if for their first 4 decades of their life, they've maybe been giving away that power that you
Mhm.
talked about to other people and now are looking to stand up on their own legs?
Yeah, I'd say listen with an open mind. It's so easy, first of all, because young people have that same issue where it's like if there's someone older than us, it's like, oh, what do they know? They're old, and for in that same breath, that someone that may be a little more seasoned is gonna say, oh, that's a 21-year-old. What did he know about life, right?
Right.
So being open minded, one would be the first step, I'd say, and then that'll allow you to be a lot more receptive to
Mhm.
no matter who you're encountering with, because you always take away something from someone. From every engagement, I feel like you could learn something, and then there's I'm not sure if he was I guess, the creator of this idea or philosophy, but Jordan Peterson said this one thing that when we're children, we have infinite potential, right? But the problem with infinite potential is that there's nothing more but just potential, right? It's
Mhm.
not actually anything, right? But in adulthood, we usually lose all that potential, and we become something, right? So it's like you have to find that, I guess, healthy balance of having that inner kid still within you, that kid that believed nothing was impossible, that we could do whatever we want to do, and we dreamed dreams, and
Mm.
we visualized, and we had the imagination that we're Batman, or I can fly, and
Yes.
it sounds a little childish and like it doesn't make sense in the real world, but when you're adult and you learn how to, I feel like, take advantage of that inner child, then you could actually put it out into the real world, because a 3-year-old can't go start a business. But if you're an adult, but you still have access to that 3-year-old brain, that 3-year-old mind that
Yeah.
believed nothing was impossible, you could actually make something of it and manifest that into the real world in front of you. And we have to realize that our lives are kind of like a book, and most people live their life not realizing that they gave the pen to write the book to someone else. And it's
Mm.
until we take the pen back that we can, become the author of, the life that we want to live.
Mhm. Wow, that's really cool. I think that's such great perspective in terms of the curiosity and infinite possibility that children have. And they're not confined by these rules that we create for ourselves over our lifetime. And
Mhm.
sometimes that maturity brings a lot of insight, but sometimes it brings a lot of limitation as well. That's the limitation that only we put onto something.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
it's like one of those things that, the more you know, the more you realize how much you don't know.
Right.
And so it's like as we know more, like as we continue to learn more, it's continuing to be like a student of life. And as you said kind of earlier too, a lot of us, or a lot of your listeners, took that traditional route of going to college and then going to some more, maybe a post grad and getting a lot of designations after their name, and you
Yes.
know,
Yes.
but it's usually after school, traditional schooling stops. A lot of those people that take the traditional route stop being a student.
Yeah.
Their learning stops
Yes.
there, right?
Absolutely. Yep.
So it's like, how do you continue that beyond, the college, whether it's, a regular bachelor's or master's or a PhD, a doctor, whatever it may be? How do you continue being a student, not just
Yeah.
of your craft, but of life in general? And, meeting new people, as I said, having that open mind to be receptive of certain new ideas and things like that, and not thinking. There's a book too that my girlfriend gifted me for last year for Christmas, and it's called the Think Again, I think it's called. And pretty much what the to summarize what the book talked about, it's that we get really good at thinking,
Yeah.
and we have to learn the art of unthinking. And
Yes.
like, because once we know something, we have to, a lot of times we're stuck in that way. So it's kind of like learning how to unlearn, essentially, so that
Yeah.
when you're in the wrong, or when your way is no longer the best way forward, being able to, like, disassemble that and find a new way that'll probably be better fit to that whatever situation or whatever environment you may be in. It's like, but unlearning that, disassembling that is difficult, because usually I believe after, I think, 35 is when most of your neurological pathways are already all set in form. So it gets harder progressively as you get older, but it's always still, new neurological pathways that can be formed.
Yeah, and it's a great practice, especially I think in business. Sometimes in business we get so narrow-minded,
Yeah.
thinking that this is the only way, but it's actually a superpower to try to challenge those norms, challenge what you've always thought to be true, and try to unlearn some of the paradigms that you've been relying on in your business.
Yeah. Some of the things I've been doing too for like the social media classes I taught a while ago is like, a lot of the people I know are in real estate, and all the things I was learning was from influencers. So when I
Mm.
brought these ideas to the real estate agents, it was like I was like the industrial revolution all over again. Like, I had these golden ideas that they'd never heard of ever before. It was
They were
like
just from
amazing.
another industry. Yeah.
Yeah, and so it's like incorporating, but that's the thing about having the open mind, not
Yeah.
being, as you said, so tunnel vision focused on, what can I do in this industry? It's like, what can I take from other places and incorporate all that? Kind of like the US is called like a melting pot, right? How can we be a melting pot of ideas? How can we
Mm.
get all these new ideas, whether that's, learning new courses, or, hiring someone that isn't traditionally in your industry,
Mm.
or connecting with people that, are probably have nothing to do, at face value with what you have going on, but it's find a way to connect that. And it's like, you get these ideas, and it's like, you kind of put that together in your industry that you're in. You don't really have to create new ideas if your industry never heard the ideas that the social media influencers are doing. you
Right?
know Now you look like, what is it, I think it's the blue ocean effect it's called, right? And you have that where it's like, now it's like you just got this new opportunity that no one's ever seen before. And it's not because you invented it, you just took it from somewhere else and put it in. You were the first to put it in your, in your field.
Yeah, I love it. Love it. Breaking the rules
Yeah,
and that's always what is disrupting in an industry. That's awesome. So, I'd love to just mention, as I mentioned, your podcast, the Walk
yeah,
to Wealth podcast. Can you give us a little bit of a snippet about how you came to create Walk to Wealth and
yeah.
what its purpose is? Because I love that part of your mission.
Thank you. So the whole idea behind Walk to Wealth. So I'll give you a little bit of context. There's a quote that I learned back in my English class, 12th grade year, right? And it goes something along the lines of, the duty of the enlightened is to enlighten the unenlightened. And that's a
Mhm.
quote that I put very near and dear and close to my heart, and I try to live with from that point on. And so fast forward now to about August of 2021. Me and one of my friends would always hop on FaceTime. We talk about life, talk about goals. And one day he suggested, like, "Hey, John, I think we should start a podcast. Like, we're talking about all these, pretty deep topics. It's like, I think people our age would probably like enjoy what we have, what we
Yeah.
have going on." And I was like, you know what, that's a good idea. So he ended up going back to college. As I said, I already left school around that time. So fast forward about 4 months after procrastinating, because I couldn't think of a name. It's like something smacked me across the face, and it was just right there, the name Walk to Wealth, and the whole meaning behind the name. And it all made sense once I put it together. It's, for the 99% of us that aren't overnight sensation, the journey to wealth is a long walk. And some may walk faster than others, but what good is sprinting to the finish line if you pass out when you cross it? And so that's how Walk to Wealth came about.
Thank you. Thank you for that. I think that that's such a beautiful quote because it makes some of us reflect back on the latter part of what you said is, what good is it to cross the finish line if you pass out when you do so? And I think that that's where many of us find ourselves, is in the pushing and forcing and hustling to make the wealth happen, and then just burning yourself out along the way.
Yeah, like, just look at how our society runs, like, how much coffee is consumed each day, like, like
Just by the measure of coffee.
yeah,
Yes.
you could just tell, like, it's no naps, it's no break, it's
No.
either more coffee, and if you there's no more coffee, then it's espresso, and,
Yeah.
like, it's a double shot, right? It's
Yeah.
like, if
Yeah.
the coffee doesn't work, you get a little or a Red Bull or Monsters, all these energy
Yeah.
drinks are doing the same thing. It's like, no, it's like, after a certain point in time, like, it gets to a point, especially if you're not doing something that fulfills you, right?
Mm.
There are the load that we can carry, the burden that we can carry, it's so much, less when it's something that we're not in alignment with. And finding that thing, even if it takes, taking a hit on your money, or maybe it might take taking a hit on your ego, but being able to find what it is that you actually feel called to do and pursuing that. It might take a little while. Like, I still have a side job while I'm pursuing all these crazy dreams that I got going on, but figuring out a way to make it happen and not saying that, oh, I can't make it happen for whatever reason may be.
Yeah, brilliant, brilliant. Oh, it's such a breath of fresh air. I'm so happy to have you on the show here today, John. Thank you for coming. I'd love to let our listeners know about this awesome summit that you have coming up. If they are interested in finding out more about you, tell us a little bit about the summit and where we can find out more information about it.
Yeah, so the virtual summit, I'm still have it in the works right now, but it should be, by the time this drops, all put together. So it's going to be called the First Step to Wealth, and it's going to be a 3-day summit, 5 speakers each day. First day is going to be on mindset, right? Because as we kind of talked here, and if you're listening to this podcast, you probably already know, but if we don't have the internal belief, we're not in the right state of mind, no matter how many quotes we read, or no matter how much we try to work it out, it'll never come together if our mindset isn't in the right place. Day two is going to be about personal finance, because if you're not a good steward of your own money, then, God forbid someone gives you $1 million, because you're not going to know what to do with it at
Yep.
all whatsoever. And then day three is going to be more focused on entrepreneurship. And so all my speakers right now are all confirmed. I got a couple big name guests, a couple 7-8 figure entrepreneurs. I got the head of diversity for the entire Keller Williams speaking on the event as well. So I know her personally. She also hopped on a guest on my podcast. So that's the beauty of making connections and networking. You get access to a lot of people that you normally have no business reaching out to, but because you were able to make good connections, you're able to put stuff together like this kind of on the fly.
So good. So good. So much strength and power to you, my friend. You're doing amazing things. Thank you so much for bringing some of your perspective on the show. Before we leave, I do want to ask you the question I ask of all my guests.
Okay.
What is your definition, John, of happiness?
Happiness for me, I'd say happiness for me is a feeling that I get that derives from me being fulfilled,
Mm,
right? If I can do something that fulfills me, the happiness is gonna come. I think happiness is more so an emotion, so it comes and goes just like a lot of other things.
mm,
And so I don't necessarily chase it per se, but I chase fulfillment, and if I can be fulfilled, I can be satiated, and then it's more likely by me doing work that fulfills me that the happiness is going to come. So it's like, by chasing fulfillment, am chasing happiness, and it's more likely to be present in my life. And as I said, I've always been a very happy guy, and it's because I think optimism has to play a part in that, and just knowing that no matter what's happening in life, life happens for you, not to you.
yes.
And when you see it as that, and you look at it, life is bigger than you. You realize that everything that you're experiencing right now, you could then, pay it forward and help someone that might be going through that experience currently.
Mm.
And, things like that, it just puts a smile on my face.
Put a smile on mine. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you to all of you for joining us here today. Definitely check out that podcast, Walk to Wealth. And you can find links to finding this incredible Instagram page of John's in the show notes. And until next time, remember that when you feel good, that's when you can do good. Bye bye.